The viewport stretched like a wound of light across the command deck. Beyond it, the border world of Thyraxis burned with sunset haze, its atmosphere thick in gold. And in orbit around it hung the Accord Dawn, the neutral vessel meant to host the first true negotiations between humanity and the Kthari Dominion. Captain Mara Vey stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the slow approach of the alien delegation's shuttle. She had been through firefights, shipboard fires, and more than one desperate evacuation, but her stomach had never knotted like this. First impressions matter, Admiral Cal's words echoed in her head. And you're the impression we're sending, Captain Vey. You've survived 3 wars. You've commanded men and women under impossible conditions. You understand stubbornness, ours and theirs. That's why it's you. She wondered if stubbornness would be enough. The docking clamps hissed. The airlock cycled. And then, for the first time in history outside battlefield encounters, a Kthari stepped onto a human ship not as an enemy but as a guest. Envoy Kaelith was tall, taller than Mara by a head. His movements were fluid, precise, almost too controlled, as if he were measuring the air around him. His skin was pale, smooth, threaded with faint bioluminescent lines that pulsed softly like a second heartbeat. His eyes caught her most, silver with vertical pupils reflective enough that she could see herself mirrored inside them. He inclined his head slightly. A gesture of acknowledgement, not quite a bow. Captain Vey, he said, his voice resonant, layered with undertones she half heard, half felt in her ribs. Representative of humanity. His accent was strange, vowels drawn out, consonants softened. The translation implant in Mara's ear whispered to keep pace with him, but his words still carried a weight the device couldn't strip. Envoy Kaelith, Mara replied, keeping her tone level. Welcome aboard the Accord Dawn. Neutral ground for neutral intentions. His gaze flickered. If that was the right word for the subtle dilation of alien pupils. We will see if intentions hold. So much for pleasantries. The hours that followed were measured in ceremonial stiffness. The human delegation and the Kthari delegation sat opposite one another across the negotiation table. Translators hovered in the air, pulsing light as they parsed words into meaning. Discussions of borders, trade routes, reparations, all of it was wrapped in careful hostility. But Mara's attention kept drifting. Not to the politics but to Kaelith. He did not fidget. He did not shift. His stillness was unnerving. The faint glow beneath his skin changed in rhythm she couldn't decode. Emotion? Thought? Nothing? His people were famous for being unreadable, for having no concept of sentiment. Everything was utility, efficiency, collective necessity. And yet, when the human aide dropped her datapad in a clatter, Mara saw Kaelith's gaze flick to the girl, hold there for a heartbeat longer than required. Curious. Observant. Not empty. Maybe unreadable wasn't the same as unfeeling. The sabotage came on the 3rd day. It began with a shudder. A low groan through the ship's bones. Mara was on her way back from the conference chamber when the lights flickered red, alarms rising in a keening wail. Hull breach, Sector C-12, the intercom roared. Seal bulkheads. Seal. The voice cut out in static. Mara sprinted down the corridor, instincts older than peace talks kicking in. The deck bucked beneath her boots. Emergency shutters slammed down one after another. Ahead she saw movement, Kaelith, gripping the wall as the corridor vented atmosphere through a ragged tear. Without thinking, Mara launched herself forward. She hit the deck, skidding on her shoulder, grabbed the emergency kit from the wall and snapped the seal. Foam tape. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't even meant for breaches this big. But it was what she had. The vacuum roared. Her lungs burned. She slammed the tape across the gash, layer after layer, hands numb in the rushing cold. Her vision narrowed to a tunnel. And then silence. The seal held. She staggered back, sucking in ragged breaths as the emergency system refilled the corridor with air. Kaelith stood frozen, his silver eyes locked on her. The glow under his skin pulsed rapid fire, unreadable. You? His voice trembled with vibrations she felt in her ribs. You endangered yourself. For me. For the ship, Mara rasped, still catching her breath. But she knew the lie. She could have sealed the bulkhead. She could have saved herself. She hadn't. His head tilted, alien and bird-like. Your species chooses this? Yeah, Mara said, forcing herself to her feet. We choose. Even when it's stupid. Kaelith stared at her another moment. Then almost too softly to hear. Impossible. That night, as engineers patched systems and diplomats argued over sabotage reports, Mara sat alone in the observation deck. Thyraxis turned slowly beneath them, its clouds gilded by its dying sun. She heard the soft echo of steps before she saw him. Kaelith, moving with that liquid precision, stopping a respectful distance away. You acted outside reason, he said. Yet the result was survival. You should not have succeeded, but you did. How? Mara shrugged. That's the thing about humans. We don't like impossible. We kick it until it moves. Kaelith's eyes caught the starlight, silver flaring like molten metal. Perhaps that, he said, is what makes you dangerous. His tone should have been cold. It wasn't. For the first time, Mara wondered if impossible was already shifting right here between them. The sabotage ran deeper than anyone first guessed. By the second day of repairs, half the ship's power grid was offline. Automated systems were patchy, translation relays cut in and out, and sections of the Accord Dawn were sealed off entirely. Diplomatic schedules collapsed under the weight of survival logistics. Mara hadn't slept in 20 hours when the explosion hit. It came without warning, a thunderous crack that ripped through the starboard wing. The deck lurched. Gravity cut out. Mara slammed against the ceiling, gasping as alarms shrieked. When she caught herself against the wall, she realized she wasn't alone. Kaelith drifted nearby, silver eyes wide, traceries beneath his skin flaring with light. Debris floated around them, shards of metal, a drifting tablet still glowing with half a sentence. Emergency shutters are closing, Mara hissed, shoving herself down the corridor. She grabbed Kaelith's wrist, his skin felt warm, almost electric under her hand, and pulled. Move. The shutters slammed down a heartbeat later, sealing them off from the rest of the ship. The lights flickered, then steadied on dim red. Mara checked the console. Her stomach tightened. Containment breach between here and central decks, she muttered. Systems offline. We're cut off. Kaelith floated silently, watching her. His expression, or lack of it, gave nothing away. But the glow beneath his skin was rapid, erratic. You are afraid, he said slowly. Mara shot him a look. Yeah, I'm human. We do that when the air might run out. He tilted his head, studying her as though she were a puzzle. Fear is a weakness. Fear keeps us alive, she snapped back. It tells us what matters. You think I would have dragged you out of that breach if I wasn't afraid to lose you? The words slipped out before she could stop them. She heard her own voice echo in the silence, hotter than intended. Kaelith's pupils widened. The glow under his skin shifted, softer now, slower. He didn't reply. Hours bled into each other. With power down, the corridor grew cold, their breaths fogging faintly in the dim light. Mara rigged a heater from a torn-out panel, muttering to herself as she spliced wires with hands scraped raw. Kaelith watched in silence, then eventually crouched beside her, his precise fingers steadier than her own. You improvise, he said quietly as the heater sputtered to life. Yeah. Part of the package deal. Mara sat back, flexing her stiff hands. Humans don't do well with sitting still and waiting to die. Kaelith considered that. My people do not improvise. We calculate. We accept outcomes. To resist futility is inefficient. Mara gave a short laugh. Guess we're pretty damn inefficient then. We'll fight the void with a roll of duct tape and a prayer if we have to. Something almost like amusement flickered across his silver eyes. Later, as they sat in the faint warmth, hunger gnawing at both of them, Mara asked the question that had been haunting her. Your people don't love, do they? Kaelith's gaze lifted to the ceiling as if searching for words. His traceries glowed faint blue. We have no word for what you describe. We bond for function. For survival. We do not choose. Choosing's the whole point, Mara said softly. That's what love is. It's not about efficiency or logic. It's about deciding that one person matters more than all the odds stacked against you. Even when it makes no sense. Kaelith's eyes locked on hers. For a moment, Mara swore the air thickened between them. Your kind would risk everything, he murmured. For a single other. Yeah. Mara's voice dropped. That's what makes us human. He studied her a long time. The glow beneath his skin slowed to a gentle, steady rhythm. I cannot understand it, he said at last. But I wish to. When the saboteurs struck again, Mara and Kaelith were ready. They traced the power disruptions to a secondary conduit running through their section. While Kaelith's precise fingers reconnected delicate nodes, Mara stood guard, weapon drawn. The first intruder came silent, shadows slipping through the broken corridor. Mara's shot lit the dark, sending him spinning into the wall. The second lunged from behind. Kaelith intercepted, movements sudden and fluid, his elongated arm catching the attacker's wrist, twisting until the bone cracked. The fight was fast, brutal. When it ended, two bodies floated still in the dim red glow. Mara's chest heaved. She turned, and saw Kaelith staring at his own hands, the traceries beneath his skin flaring bright with something she'd never seen before. Not calculation. Not efficiency. Something closer to fear. They came for you, he said, voice low. They targeted you. Mara swallowed. They'll keep coming. Because if this ship goes down, so does the peace. Kaelith's silver eyes narrowed. The glow under his skin burned brighter, hotter. Then they will not take you, he said. Not an observation. A vow. And in that moment, Mara realized something impossible was already happening. The envoy of a people who did not believe in choice had chosen. That night, as they huddled by the heater, exhaustion pulling at them both, Mara felt her eyes drift closed. She startled awake when something brushed against her hand. Kaelith's fingers, cool and too long, resting lightly against hers. Not a grab. Not a hold. Just contact. She turned her head. His silver eyes were open, watching her with an intensity that stole the breath from her chest. No words. Just that impossible choice, glowing between them in the silence. And Mara, without thinking, curled her fingers around his. They were found on the fourth day. A repair crew finally cut through the sealed bulkhead, flooding their section with light and voices. Mara blinked at the brightness, rising stiffly as medics rushed in. Kaelith stood beside her, looming pale and silent, his silver eyes unblinking as the humans swarmed around them. The others saw exhaustion. Cuts. Bruises. Hunger. But Mara saw something else. The faint glow beneath Kaelith's skin had shifted, no longer erratic, no longer cold. A steady rhythm like a heartbeat. And when he looked at her, it wasn't the look of a detached envoy anymore. It was the look of someone who had chosen. The respite didn't last. The saboteurs had been more thorough than anyone believed. The Accord Dawn's main reactor began to cascade, systems failing one after another. The ship was too close to Thyraxis' gravity well. If the reactor blew, fragments would rain down, killing thousands below. On the command deck, chaos reigned. Human and Kthari delegates shouted over one another, their fragile truce collapsing in the face of disaster. Mara shoved through them, eyes on the schematic bleeding across the main display. Manual override, she muttered. If someone can reach the core chamber, trigger the dampers by hand, we can shut it down before it blows. Kaelith's voice cut through the noise, calm and certain. I will go. Mara's head snapped toward him. The radiation levels will end me, he said simply. But the ship will survive. The planet will survive. That is the only logical course. Her chest clenched. No. We'll find another way. There is no other way, Kaelith said, stepping toward the hatch. His glow pulsed steady, unwavering. This is the choice required. Mara grabbed his arm hard enough to hurt. Don't you dare. You don't get to discover choice just to throw it away. That's not how this works. His silver eyes met hers, soft now. Mara Vey, I told you I cannot understand your word. Love. But I know. If I leave you behind, if I never see you again, the void inside me will not be survivable. That is yours. Her throat closed. She wanted to say the word back, scream it, make him understand. But the alarms wailed, the reactor countdown racing. He tried to pull away. She held tighter. And then, in the chaos, something in Mara snapped. No, she said, fierce and sharp. We're human. We don't accept binary choices. We don't accept this or that. We find the third option. Always. Kaelith's traceries flared in confusion. There is no third. Yes, there is, Mara cut in. We go together. The reactor chamber was a furnace of light and noise. Radiation meters screamed. Sweat slicked Mara's face under the rebreather mask. Her hands shook as she pulled open access panels, wires sparking. Kaelith moved beside her with terrifying precision, his alien hands sliding through controls, rerouting flows. His traceries glowed brighter, hotter, as though the energy of the failing reactor was burning through him. "Mara," he called over the roar. "The dampers, now." She slammed her hand down on the final lever. The chamber shuddered, light flaring blinding white, then dimming until silence fell. The reactor stabilized. Mara collapsed against the console, lungs heaving. Kaelith staggered beside her, traceries flickering weakly. She caught him before he fell, her arms wrapping around his too slender frame. "You're alive," she whispered, fierce. "We did it. You're alive." He tilted his head against her shoulder, voice so faint she barely caught it. "Together." The aftermath blurred. Engineers swarmed the reactor. Delegates resumed their fragile truce, shaken by the near catastrophe. Saboteurs were hunted down. But Mara remembered none of it as clearly as she remembered standing with Kaelith on the observation deck once more days later. Thyraxis glowed below, peaceful and golden. Stars stretched endless beyond. Mara leaned against the viewport, exhaustion still tugging at her bones. Kaelith stood beside her, posture precise as ever, but his silver eyes softer now. "I have no word for what I feel," he said quietly. "No translation. No definition. But it is a force. Pulls me toward you. It anchors me. I do not resist it." Mara smiled, her chest tight and aching. She reached out, her hand brushing his. "Then don't. That force. That's love." Kaelith hesitated, then curled his two long fingers around hers, his traceries flaring soft and warm. "They will say it is impossible," he murmured. "Yeah," Mara said, looking out at the stars. "But humanity's always made a home in the impossible." The Accord Dawn left Thyraxis weeks later. Tensions between their peoples remained fragile and uncertain. But whispered through both crews was a single story, that in the heart of disaster, a human and a Kthari had chosen each other. Not for logic. Not for survival. But for something beyond reason. And sometimes that's enough to change the future.